So let's do something different now, okay? Let's revisit our code to calculate the sum of five numbers that the user enters, but this time only using two variables. Okay, so you cannot do a equals int input and b equals int input and c equals and d equals, right, and e equals. This is, we cannot do that. Okay, so what we want is to do the same stuff to sort of uh, to get the same results, but this time only using two variables. Okay, and this will become clear why this two variables is why using less variables is so important. Okay, so would we do this? Okay, now think about using a calculator. Okay, so let's say you have a calculator. Okay, you have a calculator and you have buttons, right, 0 through 9, right, and then maybe a 0, and then you have plus, minus, times, division, equal to, and blah blah blah, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Weird calculator, but it's okay. So let's say you have to add five numbers. Okay, let's call the numbers, let's say the numbers are 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. Okay, so what you do is you type the first number in, right, 10. So it says 10 here. Okay, and then you click on the plus and then add 20, right? So it says 10 plus 20, right? So something like this, 10 plus 20. Now as soon as you press plus again in order to enter the third number, it actually calculates the partial sum, right? So when you hit plus the third time, it would say 30 plus, 30 plus, right? So this 30 is the partial sum of 10 and 20, right? Now here's what I mean. Okay, so we have this calculator and we want to add these five numbers. Okay, 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. So what we do is we'd say 10 plus 20. Okay, now as soon as we enter the third plus sign, right, it calculates the partial result of 10 plus 20, right? So we say plus, it calculates, it adds 30 and stores it, right? And then we enter the fourth one, which I'm sorry, third one, which is 30. And then again, as soon as we enter the next plus, it would store, it would calculate the partial result and store it, right? So we say plus, it stores 60, which is the partial result of 10, 20, and 30, right? And then we enter the fourth number, which is 40, and again hit plus, and it again calculates the partial sum of 10, 20, 30, and 40, right? And we enter the fifth one, which is 50, and then we press equal to, and then it gives us the sum of these five numbers, right? Now what it does essentially is keep a sort of a running count of the result, right? So it first calculates 10 plus 20, right, and then 10, 20, 30, and then 10, 20, 30, 40, right, and then 50, right? So essentially you have these five numbers, right? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Okay, you first add 10 and 20, first add 10 and 20, right, which gives you 30, and then you add this 30 with this 30, right, which gives you 60. And you add this with this 40 right here, right, 100, and with, you add the 50 with this, right, so which gives you 150. Now keeping this in mind, let us rewrite the previous program in which we calculate the sum of five numbers, but now using just two variables. Okay, how would we do that? Okay, so the first thing we need is a variable that stores the running count of the result, the partial sum. Okay, so 30, 60, 100. Okay, these are all the partial sums. Okay, we need a variable that stores the partial sums, and at the end of the program, it will store the final result. the final sum. Okay, so initially the partial sum is 0. Okay, so I'll say total equals 0. Okay, now you get the first number from the user, let's say it's 10. What you do is you add 10 to the total. Okay, so total equals total plus 10. Okay, let me clear the screen a little bit. Total equals total plus 10, right? So now the total variable contains 10, right? That's the value of the variable. So you get the next number, which is, let's say, 20, right? You say total equals total plus 20. Whatever the value of total was, the previous value, right? Now you add 20 to that value. You get the next value, it's total equals total plus 30, right? The next one, total equals total plus 40, right? Finally, total equals total plus 50. And at that point, you can just print total, right? Okay, so total started life with 0, with the value 0, right? Then you added the first number, so now total became 10. Okay, then you added the second number to the previous value, so total was initially 10, and then you added 20, so now it becomes 30. Okay, then it was 30, and then you added 30 more, now it's 60. In this statement it was 60, and then you added 40, so now it's 100. And here it was 100 and you added 50, so now it's 150. So at the end, by the end of these 5 statements right here, okay, your total would be 150, right? Now we have in this set of statements, we have added 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, right? But what we want to do really is add the numbers that are being provided, that are provided by the user, not 10, 20, 30, but whatever the user chooses, right? And in order to do that, what we need is the input statement, the input function, right? So how do we do that? As usual, we'd say total equals 0. We'll start with the result, which initially has the value 0, right? The total doesn't have anything in it. Next, what we do is we'll say a equals or any other variable that you like, int input, and that will give us the first number that the user enters, right? Now what we do is we'll add this a to the total, right? So we'll say total equals total plus a, right? So whatever the value of a was, now total has the same value, right? And here's where the interesting part comes in. Since we don't need the a variable anymore, because we have already added the variable to the total, right? We have already added the value to the total. We can reuse this variable for the next input. So we can say a equals int input, right? And then we get the second input like that. And then we add the second input to the total, right? So we'll say total equals total plus a. That's our second input, right? That's our first input. That's our second input. We are using the same variable to get the inputs, because once we get the input, we add that to the total, and that variable is not needed anymore. So we are free to use that variable for the next input, right? Like, let's go on to the third one. So very similar, right? Exactly the same thing actually. So a equals int input, right? And total equals total plus a, right? That's our third number right here. Fourth one, a equals int input, right? Total equals total plus a, right? That's our fourth one. And finally, again, the last one, a equals int input, and total equals total plus a, right? And at this point, our total would be whatever the values that the user provided. So this is value one, value two, right, three, four, five. The total would be the sum of these five values, right? So one plus two plus three plus four plus five, right? So this is how we just used two variables, right? Total, that's one variable, and a, that's another variable, right? So we just used two variables, but the result is that we could add five numbers that were provided by the user. Now just look at this code for a second. You can see that there is a lot of repetitions, right? This a equals int input, total equals total plus a. This entire piece of code, this entire block of code is repeated five times. This block of code is repeated five times, right? Now, if we want to repeat this code 100 times, we can just do copy paste, right? Right? So you don't firstly forget using loops or anything, right? If you had to just program a sequential piece of code, the straight away you can see that this means less typing because now you can copy paste, right?